ways that it goes together. We used to integrate information all the time without us actually having to pay attention to it, right? And that's what we're doing in spontaneous treatment science. We're taking a lot of information that we already know about people in our heads, taking one behavior from somebody and then sticking it in that category, right? Again, we do this because we're cognitive misers, and it's easy for us to do, and we like to be able to predict behavior. But Kelly says that we use these three, like we just talked, or Ted Ed just talked about, these three to make our attributions, to explain behavior, right? How consistent is this person's behavior in this situation? Consistency. How specific is this person's behavior to this particular situation? And to what extent do others in this situation behave similarly? Right? So let's look at this more graphically. What fun stuff. Right? For example, if I'm having trouble with my computer up here, most people will use consistency information, meaning, do I normally have trouble when I log onto the computer in the classroom? Right? Is that normal? Distinctiveness? Do I have trouble with other computers? Is it PCs? Is it Macs? Right? And consensus. Does the guy who teaches in here before me and after me, do they have problems with that computer? So can I make the attribution that I suck at computers, or can I make the attribution that this computer sucks? Yes?
So, these are the things our brain goes to when we're thinking about this. Is it implicit or explicit?
It's pretty implicit, right? Unless you have that, well, like we talked about in that video, something that is very distinctive that stands out to you, right? Something really, really good, something really, really bad. Then you may actually do this on a more controlled level, where you actually kind of say, well, I used to think editing was this way, and then when we had 12 inches of snow, he came and shoveled my driveway and I didn't even have to ask, so maybe Kevin's a lot nicer than I thought it was, right? But it would take something fairly extraordinary for us to do this control. We do tend to do this implicitly, like that, right? Yeah?
I'm sure the frequency is like few far more, what if you are balancing into like situation, what do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that few far more, I like to think that's something very socially balanced person as far as judging.
The situation versus the person. So one of the things we know is that the more you know about social psychology, just in general, the more you're likely to take that situation into account. Education makes a huge difference, right? Meaning I'm able to stop myself and go, well, I don't really know everything about this situation. I don't know what's going on in this person's life. I don't know what sorts of stress or pressure that they're under. I don't know who's banging on them and they're banging on me. I don't know all of that, right? So if you're able to take that step back and do that, that's good. But you're right. Lots of times, often we do this so fast that unless there's something that causes you to take that step back, you're not going to do it. It has to be worth your time. Does that make sense? Right? Again, we are very cognitively lazy creatures. It works very well for us. Works very well. It means we have those cognitive resources to use for things that we have to use it for. Inference traits, we're pretty good at that.
I tend to, when it's something I don't need to think about, that awareness you was talking about, I call it the who knows phenomenon.
Who knows? Exactly. I don't know why this person's acting this way, right? But lots of times it usually is because it's distinctive. They're acting differently, and you kind of go, well, why are you doing that? But we do. We take these three things into consideration very, very, very fast. Very fast. Right? We'll make our decision about it very fast. Okay? So let's see how this comes into play. Here's something that you most definitely will need to take out of this class. I will guarantee you it will be on your next exam. I will guarantee you it will be on your final. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Right? This is the fundamental attribution error. It's fundamental. Fundamental. Rudimentary. This is important. This is one of the most commonplace errors that we make, especially in our society. Jones and Harris. And this was a Castro speech study where they read speeches to people either supporting Castro or not supporting Castro, right? Attacking Castro. And they told the debaters, that they picked their topic, right? So those debaters assumed that whoever wrote that argument, that was their actual opinion, right? They assumed that. That makes sense. That's common sense. Now, if you told those debaters, not debaters directly, if you told the participants that the debaters, the people whose arguments we're reading, were assigned, then it doesn't actually change anything, right? Even if I tell you that I assigned somebody to support Castro or to attack Castro, if I read something that says that this person supports it, even though I told you that I assigned it to them, you are still more likely to say that that is that person's actual opinion. It's kind of belief perseverance, but it's also you're making an internal attribution on very little behavior based off of a little bit of information, right? And that little bit of information is just something that they wrote that's either attacking or supporting, right? So the thing is we make this assumption that people, what they say reflects their actual opinion. Is that actually, do you guys say everything that reflects your actual opinion? No, right? Think about when you're at work, especially if you're in a customer service industry. People are making internal, fundamental attribution errors about you all the time, right? That you are behaving this way in this situation because you are a kind and nice person. You may be in a horrible mood that day, however, your job dictates that you behave in a kind and nice way, right? So they're still going to make that attribution about you. However, it's not correct, right? Not at least in that moment. So we tend to underestimate situational, right? The fact that we're in a customer service job, and overestimate those dispositional. You just must be a really nice person, okay? Example, again, we all tend to think Alex Trebek is way smarter than everybody else on Jeopardy. However, Alex Trebek has the answers. Right? But again, because he is the host, we tend to make that assumption, and that is a huge deal. We know we shouldn't do that. He does sound smart. He had an English accent, it would be even better. Yeah. Right? So the point is we have a tendency to assume that people are the way that they act. And again, lots of times our behavior is dictated by the situation that we're in. I cannot readily explain or suggest any of your guys' personalities because this situation is a pretty concrete situation that we're in. You come into the classroom, you sit down, I'm the lecturer, so you listen to me, right? It's a very concrete situation. So the behavior that you do in here is dictated by the situation. Only if somebody got up and started singing, maybe you could, again, distinctive. It's not consistent with what they've done before, and not everybody else is doing it, then I might be able to make an attribution, right? But because everybody behaves the same, I couldn't really do that very well. However, in all honesty, if somebody asked me about somebody in here, I probably would still make an attribution. Because that's what we do as humans. We think we know, right? I'm a psychologist, so I think I know even better than most people. Which, again, is an error. However, even though I know it's an error, I'm still going to do it. It's a human being. Okay, so why do we make this? We have different perspectives. The actor-observer perspective, we observe others from a different perspective than we observe ourselves. Actor-observer. We observe others from a different perspective than we observe ourselves. When we watch another person act, that person becomes pretty much the center of our attention, and the environment tends to fall away. Right?
What was that? One more time? Tend to observe others.
From a different perspective than we just observe ourselves. We tend to look at them, not their situation. Right? For example, Auschwitz commanders exhibited no trace of emotion but professed inner anguish over genocidal actions. pity so great that they longed to vanish from the scene, and even though he professed feeling that way, assumingly, similarly stoic Jewish inmates were uncaring, a racial characteristic, which is what he presumed, as they led the fellow inmates into the gas chambers, right? So he, of course, he's going crazy English, but those Jews leading their fellow inmates into the gas chambers, that's just it's a racial thing, right? They're not emotional, that's race. Actor observer, we see things from our perspective differently, right? That Auschwitz commander can say, I was told to be doing this. I had orders to do this. It's not my choice. It's not who I am, right? But he's not giving the same perspective to the other side. Now, the camera perspective bias, it depends on whose perspective we're viewing, our opinion changes. For example, how we know this is actually from cameras. What they did is they had a couple of studies where they showed that if you view a camera or a confession of somebody who's confessing to a crime, and we focus that on the suspect while they're giving their confession, we tend to think that they're guilty. If the confession camera is focused on the detective instead, we tend to think that that exact same confession is coerced. Just depends on who you're looking at, right? Am I looking at it from the detective's perspective? Am I looking at it from the perpetrator's perspective, right? So depending on who we look at, depending on who we even see, this is that two sides of the story, right? Depending on who you get the story from, that can bias your attribution, right? So whether it's your mom who told you or your sister about the fight, okay? They could be the exact same fight. But when you're looking at the other one, you may assume somebody's the instigator when the other person was the instigator, or vice versa. Yeah.
That's the camera bias.
That's the camera perspective, right? You know, it depends on who we're looking at. It can change the way we see things. Also, I think we would all know that perspectives change with time. As people recede, you know, as individuals recede from our memories, we tend to give the situation more credit. For example, if you start thinking, if you're 10 years out of college, and you had a chemistry class and you always studied with the same group in this chemistry class, and that group really got you through that chemistry class. 10 years down the road, you're really going to give that group a lot of credit, you're going to give yourself a lot of credit, you're going to give the situation credit. What are you going to do? You'll give the situation a little bit more credit. You'll start to say, you know what, that group really did help me. Things got pretty good. And then the last one we'll talk about real quick, self-awareness. The more aware we are of ourselves, the more sensitive we are to our own attitudes, the less sensitive we are to others. Right? We'll start on this slide on